Good evening and welcome. It is time once again for CU Immigration here on WRFU LP 104.5 FM. I will be your host for this evening. My name is Mr. Garza, and I am here to let you know that WRFU is an open forum for the Urbana-Champaign community. Views expressed are those of the speakers and are not necessarily representative of WRFU, UCIMC, or, as we like to say on the televised version of this show, UPTV. These views are our own, and by our in this instance, if not in any other, I mean myself, my guests, or anyone whose words I might happen to read during the show. And speaking of guests, today we have Lisa Wilson, Executive Director of the Refugee Center in Champaign, Illinois. Lisa is here to talk to us about the center's work with refugees as well as with immigrants generally. We'll discuss the kinds of services they offer, plus what they hope to be able to do with their new grant. In particular, how the addition of more extensive translation services will also benefit many other aspects of their work. We also talk about how some members of the community can help the Refugee Center in their work and some of the outreach activities the center has planned in the upcoming weeks. I hope you'll stick with us and enjoy the show. Thank you.
About 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
There was a man in the area whose name is Don Meyer, and he worked in Afghanistan with a number of gentlemen over there that he got to know. And they were working for, I'm not sure if it was an American if it was directly for the military or an American company, but then the Afghan gentlemen were qualified to apply for what's called a special immigrant visa,
Mm.
meaning that they had worked with or for the U.S. government or U.S. companies in some capacity. They had gone through a lot of paperwork, a lot of permissions, a lot of, you know, crossing the T's and dotting the I's, interviews, and they under the Afghan Immigrant Act of 2009, they qualified to come over here as special immigrant visa
Mm.
holders. So once they got that, they named Mr. Meyer as their U.S. tie,
Ah.
and that's how they started to come here. And then as more and more families came, then they named the first arriving families as their U.S. ties and began to create a little community here. So
Mm-hmm.
when the evacuation happened in August and we started talking with our partners at the U.S. Catholic Conference of Bishops, we knew that we had to reach out to our former clients to see if they could interpret for us
Mm-hmm.
on an hourly basis. And so we've done that since October. And just recently, in the last month, we actually hired Sadia Rahman, who is working for us as a Pashto case manager. So
Oh.
she will be able to help manage the services along with the Afghan resettlement team to manage the services that are received by the Afghan population.
Mm.
So yes, when we do encounter a need for an additional language, we reach out. We have an HR specialist that we work with from time to time who helps tremendously to identify suitable candidates. With Kahobal, it's been really difficult because I think there are so few speakers that I believe all of the organizations in the area actually turn to one of three people who actually do interpretation, and we all kind of work with them a little bit here and there. So,
Mm-hmm.
so that's been it's been very difficult, and that's why Pixan Konav is part of this grant because there's a real need to develop more training for people to be able to speak and translate in indigenous languages.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you guys have your hands full, and then some. Uh, is there some way that the people in the community who are do not have some special skill can be helpful to you or supportive of your work?
Sure. There are a lot of faith-based organizations and other community organizations like the Rotaries that have been very supportive. Both where we've appeared at a number of these organizations to talk about what we do and to make awareness is a big
Mm-hmm.
part of how they can help. Is just to be aware that there is a large and growing population of immigrants in Champaign County, and also being aware of the organizations that can help those people. You get services and help them get translation. So if they're just aware of the refugee center,
Mm-hmm.
if they ever encounter an occasion where they've met somebody who's just come from someplace else other than the U.S. Or find out about people who are in need, who are immigrants, they can certainly call our office, and we can arrange for people to come in and get an intake and see what kind of services we can offer. And I really think awareness is a big key. I mean,
Mm.
um, we're not just a college town here. Where it's really a growing international population, and so if people are aware of that, I think is a big help too.
And not just refugees, right? Just
Right,
immigrants in
right. Not
general.
just, as a matter of fact, the vast majority of our clients are not refugees.
Hmm. Okay, because I know that every year on campus there's this thing called Quad Day where
Mhm.
different groups would go out there and at least up until a couple of years ago, uh, Immigration Forum would go out there and I'd end up sitting there all day talking to people, and a lot
Yeah,
of people would just ask me like, how do I get this service or how do I do uh, that sort of thing? And I didn't realize that I could have given out your number and said, hey, well, talk to the Refugee Center because they can
yeah,
help you with that. So I would
right.
just generally take their information and ask around. But that's good to know
Yes.
because there are a lot of different kinds of weird problems that you just have, when you're in a different country, and
Yeah.
even if you're not planning on moving there, it's
Right.
still a lot of
And
different.
one common problem that our clients often have is getting culturally appropriate food
Mm,
to eat.
really?
Generally, our clients are mostly below poverty level, especially when they first arrive to our area. And food pantries are great, but some of the things that are offered, our clients aren't used to, and so
Hmm.
they they either turn it down or won't eat it. So there's been a push lately, and I know Eastern Illinois Food Bank's done a great thing in reaching out to organizations and asking some of our staff to participate in kind of a listening session about culturally appropriate foods. Um, I know that from our Afghan clients, their food is tends to be expensive because their meat has to be halal,
Hmm.
so it has to be prepared in a certain way, and there are limited resources for that here. So it tends to be more expensive.
Mm, mm. Yeah, there are a lot of different things like that actually that present like a barrier
Hmm.
to just settling in. You hear a lot of people talk about assimilation, like, well, the goal is these people should try to assimilate, but it's not that easy. You can't just
Hmm.
suddenly start eating hot dogs and going to baseball games and
Right.
putting an American flag on your house. I mean, it that's not what assimilation is. It might be what would make some people more comfortable,
Hmm.
but it's learning how to fit yourself as you are
Right.
with your various your backgrounds and the context that you come from into this new place in a way that works for everybody.
Yeah.
And so, beyond the legal stuff, are there ways that you help people do that sort of thing?
Sure. We do cultural orientation.
Mm,
So that's um, we have a lot of great resources, especially through the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, in many different languages that can teach our clients about things like the monetary system
mm,
and how to take the bus. A lot of it is also, though, just that one-on-one staff client contact.
mm,
Um, we've had staff that will take the clients to the bus stop and show them what bus to take to get to their job or to go grocery shopping with them. We find that's particularly important when we have clients who participate in the WIC program, the Women, Infant, Children Nutritional Program,
right.
because there they get a list of the permitted foods and the quantities that they're allowed to buy,
Mm,
and then it has to be the cheapest price of that particular category, like the generic milk or what have you. And then our quantities are very different because we're practically the only ones who don't use the metric system.
yeah.
So, what's a dozen eggs? And what about, 12 ounces? They're used to grams. So there's a lot of one-on-one assistance in those, beginning months of how to even just get on a bus, go to a grocery store, shop from your family, and get back home.
Hmm.
It's really quite an effort, just from the very beginning. So
Is housing a difficulty?
housing is expensive, as it is all across the nation.
Hmm.
It's expensive here in Champaign-Urbana. I find that while there is apartment buildings going up left and right, they tend to mostly be student apartments, and that's not appropriate or affordable for
Yeah,
our clients.
right.
So there's definitely a lack of affordable family housing in this
Mm.
area. We were really fortunate. We had worked with a lot of area landlords in the year prior to the Afghan evacuation because of COVID. We had offered a lot of direct assistance. We gave out about $1 million in direct assistance, that paying rent, utility bills, buying food gift cards, and we did that through various state, local, and private grants.
Hmm.
So we had talked to a lot of landlords and said, okay, we're going to pay so and so's rent. Can you tell us what they owe, and can you give us a schedule so we have it for our records? So they knew who we were and they trust us. So when we had this large number of people that came over at once, we were able to go to some of them and say, we have a need here.
Hmm.
What kind of availability do you have? Um, and I'm very happy to say that we only had to put our Afghan clients in temporary housing for, I think, two families were in temporary housing for 1 week each, and
Ah.
then one group of men was in an extended stay hotel for a week. But then the apartments were ready, and we were able to get them into permanent housing. So we were really, really fortunate, but it is difficult, especially for larger families. Afghan families are much larger than American families, and they, um, for example, we have a family that's a family of nine, and so
Hmm.
that was a real challenge to find them some suitable space. But we've reached out into faith-based organizations and asked for some assistance, and they've really stepped up to the plate, um, offering everything from, they gave us new household goods for some of these clients, and offers of helping them find more permanent housing, maybe in a larger space than just an apartment. So we're really grateful to this community for really stepping up and helping us.
Mm. Yeah. Well, that sounds good. You must have a huge staff.
Not so big. We just work a lot.
So everybody wears like multiple hats and just like
Yeah,
takes them on.
we've increased our staff dramatically since the beginning of the year, primarily with the Afghan resettlement team. So we're now, I believe, up to 16 employees, but some are part-time.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of desire for part-time employment right now. So we made that work by hiring different people part-time, and um, trying to work as a team with the clients to try and get them the services they need.
So these new grants are going to be helpful, but they're just going to get the ball rolling on some things,
Exactly.
and then you're going to have to find some other way of keeping it going. Are you
Correct.
pretty confident that that's going to be, you're going to be able to sustain
Yeah.
these things?
Yes, I am. I think now that Champaign-Urbana is kind of on the map as far as being a place where a large amount of immigrants are coming to, and that's happened through the grants we've received through COVID that have attracted a lot of attention from
Hmm.
people in Chicago and statewide, and then with the Afghan evacuation. They know that this is some place that can serve these clients really well with the resources we have here, the huge number of jobs that are available here, all the industry we have here, plus the university. Um, I've spent a lot of time, and so is the rest of my staff, really educating people around the state about what there is in Champaign-Urbana. It isn't just a college town. We have all of these industries here that are hiring people, and there's just a large variety of things uh, that clients can be doing here,
Hmm.
different jobs that they can be qualified for, and there's a big need. So I do think that once we're on everybody's radar as, okay, there's a sizable immigrant population here in Champaign-Urbana. Let's see what we can do to get more the annual funding we need to keep this kind of a project going.
Hmm. How about, I was reading something the other day about how difficult students, particularly Afghan students, in this article, but it probably holds true for others from around the world, getting their credentials like transferred to so that you can kind of pick up where you left off and keep going rather than having to go back and start over. Are the jobs that you're talking about mostly like service level jobs? Uh,
They are mostly service, either service level or factory jobs. Now we do
mhm.
have some clients that came in with more credentials, and we'll be working with an employment agency with for them. Um, but yes, a lot of most of the clients that came in had are unskilled workers. So
Oh,
we
okay.
were able to reach out to a couple of area companies. Some came to us. They're so, they heard we were receiving Afghan evacuees and came to us and can we hire them? Right now, we were able to work with Flex and Gate. They've been really cooperative and they've hired a large number of our clients.
Mm.
And it's worked out well because of their location. They're located not very far away from where these men and these families live, and they're able to take public transportation there. And that's worked out really well. Um, for for other jobs, it is a definite barrier that degrees obtained overseas are not given full credit here.
Hmm.
And sometimes there is no easy way to make that happen except to go back and start all over again. We're hoping that that will change in the near future. Um, I know right now with the need for skilled workers is also great. So we're hoping with these the last couple of families that came, they have English acquisition and
Hmm.
they are more skilled.
Hmm.
So we'll see what kind of opportunities we can find for them in the community.
Yeah. Hmm. So, hmm, I've kind of asked everything that I can think of to ask. I mean, I just I'll edit this part out, but I mean, I already knew most of this stuff, but I'm trying to think of questions that are
Mhm.
like the average person who knows nothing about this would ask, and so I'm
Right,
kind of
right.
trying
Well,
to.
I can add, we have received a few questions about Ukraine
Hmm.
and any Ukrainian immigrants that might be coming over. Um, my short answer as to whether we'll be receiving any is I don't know.
Hmm.
I know that's not very enlightening, but even though President Biden said that the U.S. will admit 100,000 refugees from Ukraine, we have no idea what that system looks like right now. Usually, with the refugee process, like I said before, they're spending, many years at times applying for refugee status and waiting to receive that status.
Hmm.
So we have not been told what will happen in this situation. Um, and as far as we've had a few inquiries about U.S. citizens who are trying to get their family out of Ukraine, and unfortunately, right now, there aren't a lot of easy answers. Um, because if you don't have a visa already and if you don't have the paperwork, it's going to take some time before you can get the proper paperwork. Um, for example, you can to get a visitor's visa to come
Hmm.
to the U.S. You have to assure the U.S. government that you're not staying. So there has to be a limited time and a plan in place that you're returning. Well, that's not really possible
Hmm.
with um, with any people who are trying to flee the violence in Ukraine right
Right.
now.
Right.
Um, so there aren't too many avenues that they can legally immigrate right now. Hopefully, the U.S. Customs and Immigration Service and the State Department will work something out, and we stand ready to help whatever Ukrainian immigrants come to the area. We can also help um, those who are already in the country who now have temporary protected status. We can help them with resources to make sure that they're following the rules for temporary protected status and get employment authorization. Um, but it's unfortunately, with all without knowing what's going to happen tomorrow in the Ukraine, it's hard for us to really say how many would even come to Champaign-Urbana.
Interestingly, I've read a bit about the difficulties of Russian persons who have left the country and said, "Okay, I can't
Yeah.
stay here. You know, I don't support this. I don't support what's going on,"
Hmm.
and they're having a hard time finding anybody that wants to let them in because
Right.
of the bad reputation that the country itself, and its
Right.
government has, and they're kind of at a loss for where to go or what to do.
Well, I think a good first step would be to grant Russians temporary protected status as well.
Uh-huh.
So that, first take care, okay, the ones that are already here, even if your visa is expiring, you don't have to go back. We know that you would be, if you did not support the government, we know that you could be arrested or worse if you return. So
Right.
I personally am in favor of granting temporary protected status to Russians that are already in the country.
Yeah, that might be something that my group could advocate for,
Mhm.
since that's the sort of thing that we do. But that's the kind of like strange that not a lot of people are thinking about this, but this is an actual problem for a number of
Yeah.
people, and it's very difficult. I've talked to several people that are interested in the idea of hosting refugees. Is that something that's done? And if so, how does one do it?
Not normally.
Okay.
What normally before the Afghan evacuation, when we were asked to receive a refugee family, we give what's called assurance. But part of the rules with the resettlement agency is that we have to find them their own housing.
Hmm.
It is unless it's a family member.
Okay.
Unless it's a family member, it's kind of frowned upon to put them with strangers.
I see.
So families different. But so this was very unusual. With the Afghan evacuation, we did house two families with U.S. Local families that they never didn't know before. But it was temporary, and
Hmm.
it turned out to be just for about a week each.
Yeah.
So when people talk about hosting families, that's not the usual practice.
Hmm.
They're usually we try as hard as we can to get them their own space. But people can host by offering support in terms of either financial support, transportation support. A lot of our clients come here, they can't drive legally and they
Mm.
don't have the money to buy a car. Sometimes bus schedules don't work with their schedules, so transportation support is really important. Just um, emotional support, and I know that takes the barrier there is language.
Right. Right.
So, but even just knowing that somebody's willing to learn a few, words of your language and try and help you maybe get to the grocery store and back, I think is a big, it's a great way to assist these families.
Is there a system set up for how you would do it? Like, let's say I'm just like, okay, I'm retired and I really want to help out. Uh,
Mhm.
do I just call you and say, give me
Yeah, we
something to
have,
do, assign me something?
yes, we now have a volunteer and outreach coordinator that's working with us to try and organize. We do get a lot of requests, and sometimes it's just a little overwhelming to try and manage all the
Hmm.
data and who can volunteer when, and it's a lot of scheduling. So we have a volunteer and outreach coordinator, and she's going to be working to direct people to work more directly with some of these families now that we've got them more settled.
Do you have like a contact number or something that you could email me or something
Yeah,
that I
well,
could put on the?
our general office number's 217-344-8455, and we can get you connected to our outreach and volunteer coordinator,
Okay.
and she can contact you from there.
Yeah, I like to know this stuff, and I think a lot of people, these are some of the kinds of questions that people ask me, and I don't always have a good answer for them. Like,
Hmm.
I don't, I don't know if you can do that
Yeah,
exactly, but not knowing, I mean, just knowing what the rules are is really important, and
right,
it's helpful because I think there are a lot of people that would like to be helpful, but they don't know how.
right.
And it's like, do I send my money to charities? Do I, what do I do? So they end up posting a meme on their Facebook page or whatever,
Yeah,
and that's like the best they can come up with because they
right.
don't have any other idea of how to help.
How to help,
So it's
right?
good to have these avenues where you can sort of channel that energy.
Hmm.
Right now it's with Ukraine, and not that long ago it was with Afghans,
Hmm.
and it'll be somebody else next week, you know.
Right.
But uh,
Well, it's important to remember too, and I'm trying to emphasize this with people that, yeah, we had the mass evacuation and most of them are already here, but the support that they need, it really is about a 2-year resettlement process from, past clients that we've spoken to. It takes about 2 years to really get over that, that feeling and
mhm.
feeling more acclimated to the area and feeling a little more secure. So it's a long process, and there's a lot of bumps along the road. As for example, as they gain employment and earn more money, well, then some of their the SNAP benefits will decrease.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of adjusting and expectations that have to be tempered in terms of what's possible within that first 2 years of arriving here.
So it's the old don't give a puppy for Christmas unless you're going to follow through and raise it because
Right,
there's a lot more to it than just that initial, oh, this is great. I helped out
right.
once, you know. You can do that.
Hmm.
Well, speaking of which, are there one-time opportunities that someone can help? Is it
Yes,
just give some money, or is there something that's like, I'm motivated right now, but I'm very busy and I can't do this.
right. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's financial support. Actually, this Saturday, we're going to be joining with some of the other immigrant-centered organizations, and there's going to be a family event at our offices. We're in the lower level of the Champaign-Urbana Public Health District, and
Hmm.
they're offering a family event there's going to be food and raffle prizes, lots of information for immigrants about the different services offered by the different organizations, and there's also going to be a COVID vaccine clinic
Ah.
and some fun stuff for families and
Hmm.
some games. And they're going to they partnered with the University of Illinois College of Media. They're coming over and going to be taking some family pictures, which is something that's an expense that when you're watching every penny is something a family might not be able to do. So they're going to be taking some family pictures,
That's great.
and we hope that it's going to be a good, fun, informational event, and hopefully get some more shots in the arms. And it'll be a great event.
No, that sounds wonderful. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but is there anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to sneak in there?
No, I think that's about it. I think I've
Okay.
covered a lot.
I'm through talking to you, buddy.
Yeah,
I've had enough.
yeah,
I'll put up with you as long as I
yeah.
could. Yeah. No, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this information. And I know I learned some things, and I hope that the listeners or watchers or whoever will learn something as well. So I will share, you gave me your number in here, and I will share that information and whatever else I can find on your website on our stuff. And I thank you
Okay,
very much for your time. And
great. Thank you so much. It was my pleasure.
it was great. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye
Bye
bye.
bye.